1,100 miles, 110,000 feet of elevation over a 31-day period, covered by 2 individuals on foot. Hello and welcome to the Ultra Running Podcast with me, Coach Marshy. So, what an accomplishment that is. So let's meet today's guest. We're going to bring him in. So we're going to introduce you to Liam Butler. Hello, Liam, and welcome to the show.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
So before we dive into anything, I'm just going to take note of the T-shirt you're wearing. That looks very much like this year's London 2021 T-shirt. So I'm assuming it was all successful and you completed the London 2021 marathon.
I did, yeah. It was a marathon that was been on the cards all year, but with obviously what's been going on this year and the challenge, it was just a nice way of getting back into sort of the marathon distance and getting used to marathons again, really. So yeah, just really took it as it came and just enjoyed the day. Wasn't really sure what to expect, but yeah, I was really happy with the outcome in the end. It was a great day. So yeah.
Excellent. So the kind of running world who follow the marathons will probably be aware that 7 days before London in 2021 was the Berlin Marathon, and I know that you also completed that as well.
Yeah, I did. Back-to-back marathons, not something I've done before or would probably do again or recommend, although it did go okay. I think it depends on how you approach them. But Berlin was one of the marathons out the world 6 marathons that I wanted to do. And it was my 4th Abbott Star. I was meant to do it last year, but because of COVID, it got put back to this year. So it was really just, a clash of timings, and I definitely wanted to do Berlin, and then obviously I like to do London every year if I can. So yeah, it wasn't ideal, but managed to enjoy them both and come away with no injuries, which is good.
Yeah, something I haven't quite experienced yet doing the back-to-back. In 2020, I should have done the Brighton Marathon, and then it was going to be London the week after. So that was going to be my experience of that. But the whole travel thing for you as well must have made it a little bit more challenging as well, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of running between the 2 marathons, to be honest, because of the traveling and the tiring and, making sure you get recovery. So I think after Berlin, I didn't run for the majority of the week. I went out for a little run on Thursday, a little sort of shake out of the leg Saturday, and then went again Sunday. And yeah, it was fine. Like I say, I wouldn't normally advocate back-to-back marathons, but with a lot of mileage in my legs over the years, and particularly this year, I think as long as you have the right approach, which I did, and not sort of go for any PBs or anything, it was fine in the end. So yeah, enjoyed them.
Yeah. So before we introduce you properly, you talk about that being the 4th star. So for people that aren't aware, the majors, there's 6 major marathons. So you're going for that. So what are the 2 missing stars?
So I've got Tokyo, which I've got a place for. I actually flew out in 2020 to do it, and then 2 weeks before it was cancelled because of COVID. So I went out there and watched the elite race and took a bit of a holiday. But I have got a place for 2023, and the final one is Boston, which I hope to do next year in April. I think it's April the 18th. So yeah, then I'll get all 6 then.
Awesome.
Yes, that's the goal.
That's awesome. I often when people say I know how you feel, they don't actually know how you feel. But back in 2012, I know how you feel because I actually flew out to the New York Marathon for 2012. I got there on the Thursday, went and collected my number on the Friday, and then on the Friday night they pulled the race because of the Hurricane Sandy devastation that had been left. They decided it then was unsafe. So I had the same sort of experience where you were already there, and that's quite hard to take, right?
It's gutting, but one of those things you have to accept and move on, and I'll get it done eventually, and hopefully be in better shape as well, and yeah, get it done.
Yeah. So Liam, who are you in the normal world day to day, and who are you in the running world? What's your involvement in running? You're part of a club, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm 35 years of age. I've been part of Royston Runners. Well, I first joined the club about 12 years ago, but I'd only say I'd sort of consistently been running with the club sort of week in, week out for the last 5 or 6 years. I'm part of the committee in the club and the men's captain. And we take part in the midweek league, 10K midweek league, as well as cross country in the winter, and 5K road league as well. So the Kevin Henry. So yeah, really enjoy it. Running means the world to me. It's sort of a necessity. I have to do it. It's one of those things you really do get the bug, and it becomes part of your life and routine and mental health and physical health. So it's absolutely key for me to just function every day, really. I love it. And you build a huge social community as well, lots of friends, which is another fantastic part of being part of a running club. And then my day-to-day job, I'm actually sell medical equipment for a medical device supplier. So I'm sort of in and out of hospitals, or not so much this year because of the restrictions. But yeah, it's allowed me to have a bit more time to go and run, which is always good. So yeah, it's been a good year all around.
Have you got family?
I don't have any kids. I do have a girlfriend at the moment, and that's going very well. It's a fairly new relationship, so yeah, things are good at the moment. Running's good, girlfriend's going very well, and yeah, and the running club, which is lots of friends and keeps me fit physically and mentally, and work's going well too. Yeah, so can't complain really.
Yeah, I massively relate to everything you're saying there about being part of a running club. I think it might be a bit of a if you know, you know, and if you don't know, you don't know kind of thing. But I think anyone who's in a running club, and I'd imagine most of our listeners are in some sort of running club, or at least have a community around running. I think it definitely has huge benefit, and it's great to hear someone else talk about how important it is for their sort of day-to-day life and mental health as well, because I very much would say that if I was on the other side of this interview as well. So yeah, we've probably got quite a bit in common there. So your running journey, we can go into that in a little bit more depth as we go, but the thing that struck me and that I found out about you, and probably many others did across the social media sort of network, especially with the hashtag function, was that I think it was it all over August that you did or was it sort of end of July, beginning of August?
Yeah, it was end of July. I think it was the 23rd of July through to the 22nd of August. So 31 days.
Yeah.
With school holidays, actually, because Grant's a teacher.
Yeah,
so that was the time frame.
So there was you and another guy called Grant who decided to take on this challenge, and that takes us back to our little intro there, where we talked about the 1100 miles in 31 days. So you took on the challenge that lots of people probably have seen that such challenge exists, whether that be cycling, running, people walk it, people do all sorts of things. There's a whole John O Groats, Land's End to John O Groats. So you took that challenge on. It's hard to know where to start with this, but just give me a little intro to what it was that you actually did, your challenge from Land's End to John O Groats.
Yeah, so right at the beginning, I'll start at the beginning. When COVID hit, or February 2020, I think like many others, obviously all the running clubs stopped. You could only go out for an hour a day exercising, and it hit me personally quite hard. I wasn't going out running as much. I was sort of isolating a little bit more. Work was slow as well. So I went through a sort of 6-month period where, things were difficult, and I weren't running a lot, and it was affecting my mental health. And I was scrolling through Facebook one night, as you do, and on my feed come up a challenge, Le Jog, and the cyclists cycling the jog, and it just occurred to me that why not run it? I've always been a bit of an all or nothing guy, and I'll give myself to everything I do. I try and do it. Sort of overthink it, and I'll try and do it to my maximum ability, I guess. And I just thought that was such an epic challenge that it would be the exact thing I needed to get myself out of this little sort of 6-month rut that I'd been in. And so I just dropped a text over to a fellow Royston runner, a friend, Grant Chapman, and he was up for it instantly. And as soon as he was up for it, as far as I was concerned, it was happening. So the next steps really were to organise the route and a support team and things. We had to consider, how we would do it, unsupported or supported. Would we do it most direct route via road or off road? And we came to the conclusion that neither of us wanted to do the sort of 850-mile most direct route on road, as it would be pretty unforgiving, on your knees and joints, running on sort of hard surfaces all the time, but also probably extremely boring, we felt, running up A roads and potentially dangerous as well. So I guess it depends what it means to you. If you want to go for a record number of days in the shortest time possible, you might want to take the road. But me and Grant are very much about running in the countryside, taking in the nature, and how that makes you feel mentally, and just being outside in beautiful countryside. So we decided to link all the national trails together, essentially the Southwest Coastal Path, moving up through Bodmin Moor, Dartmoor, the Cotswolds. Then we picked up the canals through Stratford and Birmingham, across to the Pennine Way, where we did the entire Pennine Way, through sort of Northumberland Hills and Northumberland National Park, up to the canals, which took us from Glasgow across to Edinburgh. And then we picked up the West Highland Way, the Great Glen Way, past Loch Ness up to Inverness, and then the John O Groats Trail, all the way up to John O Groats. So yeah, that was our route. It was 1,100 miles. We then had to decide a time frame, which was really sort of put upon us by the fact that Grant's a teacher and he only had sort of 5 or 6 weeks holiday. So we decided to do it over a 31-day period, which was about 40 miles a day, with 1,100 feet of ascent. Both of us are very experienced runners in terms of the marathon distance, and we'd done a couple of 50k ultras and things before, but this was something we realized was very different, and would need a lot of organization and training and prep and understanding of what we were to do. So yes, that's really how we come about it. Just stop me when if you want to interject at all, because I could probably just carry on.
No. I've got to be honest. I'm sitting here and I'm in complete awe of what you're saying. So, it's epic listening to that, just that journey of, I haven't been to all those places and all those trails that you said, but I've been to quite a few of them, especially the Pennine Way. So, you're getting this vision as you're going through that, you're getting this vision. And I'd imagine people listening to it are getting that vision.
Yeah, for me, I guess we envisaged like a month on the road of a one-off kind of experience where we would almost detach ourselves from the sort of day-to-day life, and take a step back. And it allowed both me and Grant, I think, over that time frame to really just kind of step outside of the box, I guess, of what is your day-to-day reality, and see what's important in life, jobs, relationships, resentments that you've had in the past, things that people we might want to make amends with, just where you want to spend your time, you know, where you want to be, what you want to do in the future. You know, things become, I think, clearer, and you have more clarity around, you know, the importance of life and what you want to do with it and your life when you go
Wow.
through an experience like that. So that for me, and I know Grant, you know, we had many conversations about that, and we spoke about many different things on the journey. And
I mean, if you didn't know each other well before, you definitely know each other well now, right? Or
yeah,
if you thought you knew each other well, now you definitely know each other well.
Extremely well. I mean, it was a case of literally 10, 12 hours out on the trails, and then we'd come back, we'd eat, we'd shower, we'd go to bed, we'd set the alarm for 5:30, you know, 5:45, and we'd be up and do the same again. So it's just run, eat, sleep, repeat, run, eat, sleep, repeat. And we did that for the month.
See, I'm smiling away like a Cheshire cat here listening, because it just, to me, that sounds like going out there and, as you touched on, living your life, and you're actually living in the moment, in the day, and you're taking a step on this journey every single way. You're almost like going out on an adventure every day, and you're going through this whole world of self-discovery, and, you know, all the things you said before about mental health and everything else. Like, you're really stepping out of that day-to-day kind of hamster wheel that we're probably all on, and you're stepping away from it. And it just sounds like absolutely epic to hear what you're saying, because the question I was going to jump in with was, what motivated you and Grant to do it? But it sounds like the enormity of a challenge such as that was just what you personally needed.
It was what I personally needed at the time. And I've always been one to, you know, I don't do things by half, I guess. And, you know, I'm not scared of failure either, but as long as I've given it my all, and, you know, I can be proud of myself. And when that idea came into my head, I guess, I just felt that it was a challenge that was going to give me so much back, in terms of, that sort of self-discovery, that journey, that ability to be able to just see things a lot clearer on a day-to-day basis. You know, spend so many hours outside. You know, we had so many laughs, highs, lows, fun, laughter, pain. You know, all the emotions you could feel we had on that journey. And we were fortunate enough to have a support team of about 25 Royston runners that, you know, were amazing. They jumped on board so quick. Within 2 weeks, I think we had a full support team that were taking, you know, a couple of days at a time to support us with nutrition, making sandwiches for us, and you know, and I'll talk about nutrition a bit more as we go on. But yeah, they would you know, pick us up from our, you know, B&Bs, locations, take us to our start point, collect us, anything we needed at all, they were there. And they really kept us going, actually. And it was nice to see different faces from the club every couple of days supporting. So the challenge itself was like nothing I could have imagined or did imagine, and nothing like running a marathon. It was a run / walk, fast hike, run. And we started off, when we started off training, you know, around sort of 11, 12-minute miles. So it would take us about 11 or 12 minutes to run a mile. And we realized when we started putting some back-to-back days together, 2 or 3 days in training, that pace was actually too fast. The body was not recovering, I guess, in the short recovery period that you'd have to be able to then go again. And we realized we had about 10 to 12 hours in a day where we could be out making, you know, moving, getting the distance covered, that would then give us enough time to still eat, still get recovery and enough sleep, and go again. So we spent pretty much 6-7 months working out the balance between our pace and how long we needed to be out covering the distance, what time we needed to finish, eat, how much sleep we needed to get, and then prep all our stuff for the morning and then go again. So like I say, we started off running initially in training about 11-minute, 12-minute miling. But then actually, by the time we came to the event, we realized that we would cover maybe about 4 miles in an hour. So about 15-minute miling. So that would, obviously it sounds initially quite slow. And it is if you're running, perhaps what would normally be running a marathon in. But the consideration really was getting to the end of the day, the 40 miles covered with as little fatigue as possible. And being able to recover enough to go again the next day. And some of the terrain we were following as well, I mean, it's all national trails, all off-road pretty much. So it was climbing, up boulders and rocks and cracks. So, it just wasn't possible to, travel or go that quickly. The amount of fields we'd go through, cow fields. There's a few stories about cows that we've had. I think, well, Cow-mageddon, I think, or Armageddon, Cow-mageddon, I think Grant calls it. But we had a few scary experiences in, I think it was Wiltshire. I think, I can't exactly remember where we were at the time with getting through different places. We were, points we were going through riverbeds and across fields and all sorts. So it was, that slowed us down. But yeah, we set in the end, through 7 months of training, we realized that this pace set to be around 15, 16 minute miles, about 4 miles an hour. We'd be out 10 to 12 hours a day. We'd be eating, we worked out our nutrition and what things we needed to be eating, and we'd be eating little but often. We decided, sandwiches that we'd had some very strange combinations, like, well, at one point we had banana, peanut butter and jam in one sandwich, which sounds a bit strange, but
actually nutritionally, right?
Like nutritionally, yeah. I mean, you've got a bit of protein, obviously, in the peanut butter, and you've got plenty of energy in the jam and banana and bread, obviously. So we practiced with those, nutrition and what we were eating, and different energy bars and fruit and things just to keep us going, that wouldn't upset our stomachs. I typically would have my porridge in the morning, and then make sure we're getting enough eat through the day. We worked out, I think we were consuming about 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day. To kind of sustain the energy that we needed for the day. And even then, through over the 31 days, we still lost weight, even consuming 6,000 calories a day. On the face of it, sometimes you think, going at 4 miles an hour, or you start for a very long walk, but it's mentally, you think it wouldn't be too difficult, but it was a lot more difficult than it seems, maybe on the face of it, because it's just such a long time to be out on the road or out in the fields.
Yeah, I mean the time on the feet there, that's just
yeah. If you go out for a 2-hour walk, at the weekend, you take your dog out for a walk for 2 hours or 3 hours, you come back and you're knackered, aren't you? So people think that, that's why I always have respect for people that, anyone that does any sort of marathons or whatever race distance is, whatever time it is, because the faster guys can get it done maybe quickly, more quickly, but then equally someone that does a marathon in 6-7 hours, that is still a lot of time out on your feet, and it's almost like an entirely different challenge altogether. I only really appreciated that when I was doing these 10-12 hour hikes and runs with Grant on a daily basis, back to back, trying to minimize fatigue, trying to minimize injuries, and looking after ourselves and body as much as we could.
It's really interesting what you say as well, because you talk about that sort of 6-hour marathon. Now, my PB is 4:16. So whatever that is, just over 10-minute miles, say. That's my marathon. But due to training status and a recovery from injury, over the last sort of 6-8 months. Sunday, London Marathon just gone. I actually did it. I actually had to do a bit of a math run and a bit of a pull it out of the bag and conserve energy and check that the foot wasn't going to give in again, and did a 6-hour marathon, bang on 6 hours. And that, for me, the difference in how that felt was huge. And that transition from marathon running to ultra running is a big one. And there you are on this epic ultra day, multi-day ultra marathon that I think the Facebook advert you're probably referring to was a virtual event that people were talking about doing, the Land's End to John O Groats, which kind of inspired this. But at around the same time, Rat Race were advertising this same idea as a pre-planned ultra marathon, but it was over a lot longer period of time. I think it's 23 miles a day or something that you'd be doing, and it was about $6,000 or something like that. It was massive, whatever it was. Forgive me if the facts are wrong on that, and hopefully Rat Race don't come after me if they ever listen to it. But what I'm saying is that you guys took this challenge, found your own way of putting your own stamp on it, which sounds awesome, by the way. The fact that you've now got that route as well is a really kind of golden nugget for anyone who might want to do something similar in the future. And that kind of idea of going through all the different trails, and that just sounds epic. So the planning must have been huge. So when we talk about the overnight stays, those overnight stays, how did that work? Like pre-planning for such a multi-day ultra marathon event, how did you pre-plan the overnight stays? Did you always stay in the bed, or were there tents involved, or how did it work?
So honestly, I think the planning was in some ways as tough as the event. Like, it was more planning than I ever thought would be needed. It just went on, the hours and hours and hours and days and days and days of being on my laptop and making calls and organizing the planning. And that was mostly around the route initially. So I went on to subscribe to a plotter route account, premium account, and plotted the route exactly how I wanted to plot it. How we wanted to go through the southwest coastal path, taking all the North Cornwall coastal towns and villages, and and we had pretty much a clear idea where we wanted to go, but it was just making sure that, because we're going off road, that everything, there was public rights of way, all connected up. So once we had the route and plotted 1,100 miles all across the national trails, it was then a case of booking accommodation, and we decided that we would book Airbnbs or B&Bs, and that essentially we needed to, the day was going to be hard enough as it was, and we needed a comfy bed and a shower at the end, and setting up tents ourselves or by the side of the road or anywhere was just going to be another sort of thing to that would be on top, too much on top of what we already had planned. So we essentially booked accommodation for every single night ahead of the event. Wow. And we made sure that we broke down the 1,100 mile route into days, and depending on how much ascent there was, so if there was a lot of ascent in a day, we'd maybe make it a 35 mile day. If there was a relatively flat down the canals, that might be a 45 mile day. So we try to look at the ascent and the profiles and plan distance based on that, on how long we thought, because we could travel a bit quicker on the canals, for example, than we can up the Pennine Way and going up Jacob's Ladder and across Kinder Scout, and where you don't make much progress anytime quick. So once we knew the days, we then basically plotted the accommodation as close to our finish points and start points as we could. It was then a case of putting together a support team and making sure they had all their accommodation booked, where they were staying, start times to pick us up, finish times, and then plotting drinks breaks locations, lunch break locations, lunch 2 locations, and we had about 4 or 5 spots during each day where the support team would come and meet us. So it was to plot all them onto the map as well. And I just think, like, when you've got like 25 people, which is amazing, that were supporting us and involved before we go, it just becomes this huge sort of thing that.
Yeah. Did you feel like you care to them as well?
Did I what? Sorry.
Did you feel like a bit of duty of care to them? You had to
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're so appreciative, obviously, of their support, and that we, I wanted to make sure that, they had everything they needed in terms of maps and understanding where we were staying, what we needed in terms of nutrition, where to meet us, and all the kit we had to pack. So for every eventuality, we had so much kit, you think you don't need a lot, but we did. There were washing rotors, washing would come back every sort of 3 or 4 days. We actually, in the end, because it was so much kind of admin, if you like, and organizing of the route and accommodation and pickup points, lunch locations, everything like that, dates, we actually approached a lady in our running club, Lynn Hayes. And she was amazing because she took on the role. She sort of said, well, I will be kind of support team coordinator. And so she essentially coordinated the entire support team for us during the event and before some of the event, and sort of washing rotors out, collection points, and did all, and basically tied it all together for us so that me and Grant could go out and focus on our training and the event itself, while Lynn handled a lot of the organizational admin around everything that needed to be done to allow us to have the best chance of succeeding each day. So yeah, that was sort of how we went about it. But it was,
what, that's really interesting to hear, and really good to know, because I've got my own goals around the ultra world and certain big races over in the States, and hopefully one day UTMB, maybe, I don't know, but I'm sure anyone listening's got their own goals. But most of those goals, these things, now people have got to go longer, further, more days, fastest known times, all of this stuff, right? And to hear what you're saying there is really helpful, because not just for me, but for everyone else, we're learning as we go when we're listening to this, because that sounds like a logistical nightmare that if you're not organized, it's going to go wrong, innit?
Yeah, absolutely. It had to be. Like, I'm convinced, even now that now we've done it, I'm convinced if the logistics and organization hadn't have been there, so planned so well by the ourselves and the support team and Lynn, that put all that together for us, and if we hadn't have gone out for 7 months and trained as we did and worked out the pace that we needed to going out every week with dressed as if we'd go, with our ultra vests, with food, with drink, stopping for 15 minutes here and there where we felt we needed to just have a stretch, do some mobility work, stop any little niggles, footwear, how many pairs of shoes we were going to need. I think we used 4 pairs each during the challenge in the end.
Wow.
Just rotating shoes, making sure that we didn't get any blisters or niggles. If we did, we'd stop straight away and manage them before they become too much of an issue. Because I think, because it's back to back every day, the smallest little niggle could, and did quite often turn, if you don't manage it straight away, then it would just turn into something big. So if any blisters or any rubbing, even if you weren't sure, we'd just stop, check, put a plaster on, Compeed plaster or whatever, or bandage, and just make sure that we looked after each other, essentially, and worked as a team, because we were so close together, me and Grant, and we generally get on very well. But when we're living in each other's pockets day in, day out, for like not just the challenge 31 days, but we were together every day training. We did gym 3 or 4 times a week together to build up. We did a lot of strength work because we realized we needed to be really strong in terms of our legs and core, and to avoid injury, really. So we did that, and every weekend, without exception, every weekend we'd go out and do 10-hour days, 12-hour days, cover the distance, and we'd do that back to back. And then when there was a bank holiday, I think we had 3 bank holidays up to the event, and we did some triple days. During training as well, we went to Snowdon and Snowdonia. We did 2 days there, and one day we climbed Snowdon twice in one day, which was quite fun. We went to the Peak District and did part of the Pennine Way in training. We did the Norfolk coast. We went down to the South Downs in Eastbourne as well and did that. We went up to the Howgills and did some training up there in the Yorkshire Dales. So we really did kind of prepare, I guess, ourselves as much as possible in terms of doing as many training days as we would anticipate them being in the real event in training. So when we came to do the event, although we knew it was going to be really tough, we were really prepared because we knew what pace we were going to do. We knew what we were going to eat. We knew the support team was going to be there. The accommodation was booked. We knew how long it'd take us to get ready in the morning. You know, we had a little routine, even staying together in the same, you know, we booked a lot of twin rooms and we'd have a routine before and after, me and Grant working well. So, you know, we stayed together. We had masks on asleep because Grant likes to read a book in the, you know, before he goes to bed, whereas I needed to get to sleep earlier, or earbuds to you know, for your ears and things. So we just tried to think of everything that we could
and you said
the best chance.
You said at the beginning that, you know, you're a bit of an all or nothing kind of guy. You're going to go for it to the max if you're going to go for it. And it sounds, from what we've talked about, that there was no stone unturned here. And for me, that's not just in running. Definitely, it's true, but in life as well, because you took that approach. That's why you were successful. This sounds like you planned it to the letter, and it's worked really well.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing for me was if I could prepare as much as possible and leave no stone unturned, like you say, then if it wasn't to go to plan, and if we weren't to get to John O Groats, then you know, for whatever reason, injury, number of things, then I'd have no regrets, because at least we've prepared and given it our best shot. You know, if you leave, and that was kind of my mentality, as I try to always look at it like that, and so it proved to be, because, you know, Grant, as we set out in the plan as structured, he got to John O Groats in 31 days. My journey got to the Pennine Way, and I took the next half of the month sort of in and out where I could, because I had to, unfortunately, which was devastating at the time and still holds a bit of pain now, but I accept it, that you know, I couldn't walk after 11 days straight. We had our first recovery day planned on the 12th day, so we were doing it over 31 days, 29 running days. We had 2 complete rest days, and the first stretch was 11 days straight, and we'd made it all the way to the Pennine Way, and I had a sort of reoccurrence of very severe kind of shin splint, but just in my left shin, which is always, over the years that I've been running, been a big issue for me. Just in my left foot, I've had stress fractures in my left shin before, but I did everything I could in the training, because I knew that was something that could potentially, you know, cause me to come unstuck, particularly with the nature of the challenge. So I did all the strength work. I would eat right. I would be as light as possible, as lean as possible, but as strong as possible. So I got myself into the best shape I could. I was eating well, training as we felt was the most efficient way to train and do the challenge and get to the end of the day. But by day 11, I was, you know, well, it started on day 10. It was just giving me so much pain that, unfortunately, 10 miles short of our target on day 11, I had to stop. I couldn't walk anymore. Every time I put my foot down, it sent severe pains straight up my shin. So I stopped. It was the right decision. I ended up in Sheffield A&E having some scans done because I was worried that it was another stress fracture. Fortunately for me, it wasn't. It was, in the end, it was just severe muscle edema and shin splints and severe inflammation. So it was a case of having to rest it and join back in where I can and support Grant and the rest of the support team to get Grant all the way to John O Groats. And in the end, that's exactly what we did. We supported Grant. We got him there. I joined him when I could. We ended up raising a lot of money. I think about £11,000 we've raised for Macmillan Cancer and Essex Air Ambulance Service. That's an Essex Air Ambulance Service. So, you know, those are two things I can be proud of. And
I think you can be proud of it all, mate. To be honest, I think the fact that you got to where you got to, but like you said, maybe the planning was as big a task as well. And to be able to plan something like that as well, that's a massive achievement. And an achievement within the running world that's all right. It's not physical running, but it's an achievement as well. And I think you should be really proud of it all. You know, the whole concept, it's epic. And, you know, the fact that that's where your journey physically ended, you carried on the whole journey and you got to, you know, bittersweet maybe, but you got to still experience that process of going to those B&Bs and going up the route. And, you know, I'm assuming you then, when you weren't running, went to the next planned lunch stop or whatever. And
yeah, I did. I mean, it was meant, I would say it was definitely the toughest thing I've done mentally in terms of the challenge, because, you know, anything I've ever done, particularly in the running world or just in life generally, you know, I don't like to fail. I know no one likes to fail, but you know, I've been fortunate, I guess, in my running that anything I've ever done in my running, I've targeted a time and I've always managed to achieve that time so far and get PBs and so forth. But I did know that this challenge was something that was going to be very different, and we're perhaps dealing with different levels of success. So obviously plan A and success A would be to do what Grant did and get all the way to John O Groats. But, you know, for me, it was plan B or even plan C, which was, you know, still to do 11 days straight and cover 440 miles in the end, and raise a lot of money and have an experience that was, you know, I'll never get again. You know, the laughs and the fun and the lows and the pain and the enjoyment and the kind of feelings that we had on a day-to-day basis that just will never leave me. You know, I'm definitely proud of that and glad we gave it a go. And I've got no regrets because, like I say, we didn't leave anything unturned. And I knew that this injury would potentially be a problem, and so it turned out that it was. But you know, you can't change the things that you know, you can't control. And I try to just accept the things that, you know, I could do and could change, and I could join in when I was there and when I could, and I could support Grant, and we could continue to raise money, and I could continue to try and enjoy the experience as much as possible, and take all the positives that we could. So that's what I tried, although it was difficult. Watching Grant every day out there and not being able to join in was mentally difficult and tough, but you know, I tried to remain as positive as possible, and I'm glad I stayed till the end in the end, and you know, to finish with Grant, because we always said that we'd start together and finish together, and in the end that's exactly what I did. Yeah. The support team were amazing around me. You know, it was just incredible. I'd recommend it for anyone that's thinking of doing, you know, something life defining or changing like that gives you kind of a month out of reality if you have the time to do it, of course. I'd definitely say do it, but prepare for it, I guess, and think about what you want from it, and try to enjoy it as much as possible.
And like, if we think about running journeys, and your journey, my journey, all, you're the captain of the men's captain at Royston Runners. Running is why we're all there, but sometimes you get way more out of it, and you go to places that you would have never otherwise gone to. You find things out about yourself that you perhaps wouldn't have found out if you just kind of carried on in your pre-running day-to-day life. And running is so much more. And listening to what you're saying there about controlling the controllables, and from where I'm sitting with my experience that I've got, which is fairly limited in the ultra world, but is improving on that side of things, I think you controlled what you could, and the thing that stopped you was not in your control.
Exactly, and you have to learn to accept that. I mean, it's I've heard of I think it's called the Serenity Prayer, where it's exactly that. It's learning to accept the things that you can't control, and basically control or do the things that you can change, and that's what I did. It really did, I guess, give me over that month and Grant that kind of out of the box, kind of out of reality kind of experience, where I wouldn't say an out of body experience, but things just become so much clearer and clarity, in terms of what actually matters in life, and what's important, what actually really matters, the things you get stressed about on a day-to-day basis, and you don't need to get stressed about those things, and what you want to focus on when you get back, and things like that. So really enjoyed it. Would I do it again? I don't know, maybe not that challenge, but definitely would like to do something again at some point that takes you.
I was going to ask that. I was going to ask, is it now that you've got unfinished business with this exact thing, or are you going to go and look at another challenge?
I think if I was to ever do it again, I'd have to accept the nature of my injury that I have. It's a long-term injury. It's not going anywhere. So I think I would take maybe 1 or 2 more recovery days, in hindsight. And I'd probably take maybe 5 miles off a day. So instead of doing 40, maybe do 35. I know that doesn't sound a lot, but there's a heck of a difference between 35 miles and 40 when you're actually out there. And a 35-mile day feels relatively short compared to a 40-mile day. Trust me, it was definitely felt like that when we're out there. And just take a couple more recovery days if I was to do it again. But no, I don't think I would do that particular challenge again. I don't feel like it's unfinished business. Grant did message me the other day. He said he's seen some ultra runner do, I think, 700 miles from South Wales to North Wales, covering all the different Monroes and peaks and mountains. And do I want to do that? And I said, well, yeah, maybe one day, but not yet. I mean, I still hold a little bit of pain, if I'm honest, that I didn't quite get to John O Groats, but I have to remind myself that you try and learn from you learn from the experience, and learn from when things go wrong. You probably learn the most. You don't necessarily learn as much when all things go right. And up till now, I've been fortunate, like I say, with the running, and everything's gone right. And for a change, it didn't quite go to plan, but it was still a big success in a lot of ways. So for that, I'm proud, and it wouldn't stop me or make me think that we wouldn't do something like this again. We'd have to make sure, I think, I'm doing it for the right reasons and enjoying it, and I'd have to make sure I know what I want to, what we would get from it. But no, definitely, it definitely is made me think maybe in the future to do something else like that again.
Yeah, I think well, I'm just sitting here in complete awe of you and what you've designed and all that effort that went into it, the pre-planning as well. Just that's amazing. And hopefully you guys will realize that no one can ever take that away from you guys. That's something that you did and you achieved. And like you said, there's probably things that laughs and moments and memories that you can never get back again, and they're yours for keeps. So the ultra running world, what do you think of the ultra running world? What's your kind of general feeling towards it?
I mean, generally, I think people, when I came into running, my perception was always that, ultra runners, you do your 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, and then when your times, you can't sort of maybe PB anymore, or you can't, you move on to ultras and you kind of build it up like that. And perhaps when you've got more experience, you do ultras. But I still consider myself fairly new to running, and this was kind of, I'd say, a pretty big jump. But I've done maybe a dozen marathons and like a couple of 50Ks, and obviously we did loads of 50Ks and above in training to prepare ourselves for it. But I would say with ultra running, it gives you almost, well, it gave me almost an entirely different experience to, a half marathon or a 10K or even a marathon. It's a different mindset. I think you've got to consider nutrition a lot more. Time on feet is obviously a lot longer, and you need to keep your energy up, but you've got to eat the right things little and often and make sure that you're not upsetting your stomach and things like that. Mentally, I think it can be a lot tougher as well, because you're out there for so long and it can feel like never ending at times. But what I would say is I think the slower pace of it allows you to kind of appreciate your surroundings a bit more and focus on kind of what running meant to me a bit more. I think, I would certainly take a lot more in than I've ever done in a race. You kind of, when we were training around our local area, we noticed things and trails that we'd never noticed before. Yet we'd run them 100 times before on a session on a Tuesday night at the club, but you're running quickly and you don't take it in. So you do appreciate things a lot more, I think, and get a greater sense of being outside and appreciating nature and kind of the mental relief and kind of health that it gives you, it can give you. So I don't know, that's what ultra, I don't pretend to be all knowledge or know it all about ultra running. I'm quite new to it, but that's what I got from this experience. And I'd definitely like to do like a 50 miler and a 100 miler in a race. And I've supported and watched a few friends do it from the club, and I have a massive appreciation for it, because I know it's completely different with the considerations that you have with nutrition and reserving as much energy as you can in the later stages, and pacing it. Pace is always important in any race, but it's probably more important than ever when it comes to ultra running.
I agree with that massively. That is something to think about, and the way you've just said it there, I love that. It sums it up. It is almost more important to go slow, that you're going at the right, you're not going too quickly. Otherwise it's tipping over that energy balance. And whether you're using tempo training, math training, long slow duration training, whatever it is you use, whatever sort of area you're from, and whatever method you use, when it comes to the ultra running, that what you just said is my experience so far as well, is like, am I going at a pace that is slow enough to make sure that I don't get rid of my reserves too quickly? But also I don't want to be going so slow that I'm going to miss the cutoff or whatever, in a race situation. So that's my experience so far. But
it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act, because especially with the multi-day events that we, like with the jog challenge that we did, it was, sometimes we'd get to the end of the day and we felt like we had a bit more energy to give, and we perhaps could have picked the pace up, but doing that would have been disastrous, because if you don't start the next day, anything other than kind of at least 80-90%, then you're not going to get to the end of the day. And it because it's every day we're doing it, it just has such a knock-on effect. If you start one day at 60-70%, then you're not going to get to the end of the day, and then you're not going to get to the next day, and your journey's over. So I think pace and management of your kind of reserves and energy and muscle fatigue, and keeping mobile and mobility work, even if you need to stop for a minute and just do a few leg swings or hit, whatever it is, just to keep mobile and things moving, then it's more important than ever to do that, I think, in something like an ultra compared to another race.
Yeah, I'm a massive sort of believer in the strength and conditioning for running in a general term, but especially for the longer stuff, sort of, half marathon, marathons and onwards. From there, that strength and conditioning for running and every sense of that word. So that includes sort of any yoga based work and, any mobility. And I'll be the first to admit that I've had to improve that a lot in my own journey. And I think you're right. In the middle of Pennine Way, you might need to sit there and do some hip flexor work and just get your legs opened up a bit. So I totally appreciate that. So just quite quickly, what would you say your top 3 tips are to someone who was looking to do a multi-day ultra running event, whether that be a kind of pre-planned one by an event or whether that be something that they're looking to do by themselves? What are your sort of top 3 tips?
If it's going to be like a multi-day event that like we did, then I would say in the training, get out there and do a few back-to-back days. There's no point in doing lots of single days. You've got to try and string 2 days together. When you've done that for a couple of weeks, then 3 days together. I appreciate it's more difficult with work commitments and time and things, and that's why we made the best use of the bank holidays. But it was really important for us to know that we can do 3 days back to back. We didn't want to enter the challenge and get to 3 or 4 days and then not be able to continue. So I would say getting out there and doing as many sort of back-to-back sessions as you can, even if they're not the full distance, 40 miles every day that we did, just doing like 3 25s or 3 30s and building it up from there. So I'd say that was important. Probably the nutrition is absolutely, as it is with most races, important, but with ultra running and multi-day events, it's absolutely critical. You need to be replenishing your glycogen stores with carbohydrates, and also taking in enough protein to repair the muscles each night. Most of the body, literally the only time our bodies were recovering were overnight, and which is when when you're sleeping, most of the repair work is going on. But if you've not given your body the protein that it needs post workout, ideally within 30 minutes of finishing, or as quickly as possible, then you're not gonna repair the muscles quick enough to be able to go again the next day. So just making sure you're eating the right things and enough of it, and fueling enough every day to be able to go again the next day. So those 2 things I think are critical. And a third thing I would say is probably the planning. Just make sure you've got everything planned, and if you have any little niggles during any of the days, don't persist with them and just try to deal with it at the end of the day. You need to stop, deal with it straight away, because it will stop anything in its tracks becoming more of an issue. And that could be something little like a blister, or if your knee's twinging. Quite often my knees were twinging, and I'd stop and do some just quad stretching and calf stretching, and that would actually release the knee a little bit, and it felt fine, and I got through the rest of the day. So they're sort of I guess what I learned most, and my top sort of tips, I guess, for anyone who wants to do something similar.
That's epic. That's absolutely epic. Awesome, Liam. So that for me was an like an epic show to go through. Like, you could feel your emotion as you were saying it, and you could see what it meant to you and your achievement. So congratulations on what you've achieved there, because I'm just in complete in awe of you and Grant and the team that you had behind you as well. You know, what an achievement. And in this running world that we live in, that's so good to hear. So thanks for coming on the show. I personally am going to enjoy watching what happens in the future with you guys, see if you come up with anything else epic. And, you know, if you're certainly looking for any help, feel free to reach out. Always happy to come and help you on anything that you're doing. And that sounds like something I would happily come and support you on if you needed someone for a day or whatever. So, yeah, I look forward to that continued journey. So we're going to call it a day there. If you enjoyed the podcast, guys, you enjoyed the show, please share it with anyone. That story that Liam's telling there is definitely worth hearing, especially if you're getting into the ultra running world. There's loads of advice in there that is priceless. And if we all knew that before we started, then we might be in a better position when we first go out on that first run. So if you thought it was helpful and there's someone you know that would like to hear it, please share it on to them. But I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I certainly enjoyed myself today. Liam, I hope you enjoyed yourself. And I'm looking forward to discussing more with you on the Ultra Running podcast in the future weeks. Take care, guys. See you soon.